looking really dapper.
Oh, no.
Oh.
You're going to ask me what's in the pop papers, aren't you?
No.
Well, in fact, it's quite a good thing you have asked me. Well, you haven't asked me what's in the pop papers, because this week, for once, and I hadn't noticed it, I must have had this during the week, because it's the current edition of Kerrang! The magazine you can listen to, more or less, and that is that it's actually got a 3D supplement. I mean, do you remember those where you used to get a red and green glasses? You get a pair of red and green... So it's not so much what's in Kerrang, it's what's coming out of Kerrang. So I'll have a look like this, you see, and not only is it full of pictures of, like, Saxon warlords who live with their mum in the West Midlands, you know, the kind of thing Kerrang's full of, but... Whoo! It's coming out at me! So there you are, it's only a couple of pictures in there, in that red and green. There you go. So while I'm talking...
Right.
Now, let's see if it's...
It's a bit like the Conkers the other night.
Yes, it's all go. Well, I mean, there we go. Oh, yes, exactly, isn't it? Yeah. But anyway, not only what is coming out of Kerrang, but what's in there. We always look for ourselves, don't we, to some degree. Stop looking at him, Janice. Good job we didn't have those nude pictures from Facebook. There's something coming out of that, blimey. Rode up. I'm having a quick look to see if there's anything. I look down. Have you noticed they keep referring to you? What were you? You were the flame-haired temptress, then you were something else, and I forgot. You know what you are this week? Do you know what you're? Look down, Melody Maker here. Look at for a stop. Everybody's something. Radio 1 round table. That's when we'll be together again, you and me tomorrow, with Fergal Sharkey. Well, he's neither here nor there. But the Majestic Helen Terry.
Yes.
Fat. That's what Majestic means. If they don't like you, you're fat. If you're, you know, otherwise, sorry, Helen, if you're listening, because I'm pretty majestic myself. But she's a big lady. We all know what she is. She knows what she is, but they call her Majestic because she's like an in figure now. You are remarkable. Says here, the Majestic Helen Terry and a remarkable Janice Long, Friday round table tomorrow. That's fine. But then you come in again on Sunday, Radio 1, where you're talking to Alan Curry, there from the Thompsons. Sultry Siren. Why don't we better make a list of these, haven't we, really? Because is there anything else in here? Actually, this is not about you, but it's for you. I notice in sounds, in their small ads. Notice to Skins, Mohicans, male, 21, wants ignorant, dirty mates for pen pals. Now...
Thank you very much.
That could be you, could be you. Having a quick look through the others, TV, radio, hello, what's this? Record Mirror? Here's a new one. Now, this is the worst one. The High Priestess of Pop. Do you know what that makes me? Just because I tell the odd joke every so often. The Clown Prince. Innit? You know, innit? Eh? The late night Clown Prince. Majestic, that's him. Look at that Majestic twerp over there, the Clown Prince, that's the... Anyway, let's get on it, because it's a more serious sort of pop press this week. Normally we have a lot of jokes in and so. Because for once, obviously, it's not so much that it's about me. Well, it is in the sense at the end. There's a sting at the end, which we'll come round to in a minute. But, I mean, I was involved in certain things that are reported this week because of the ICA Rock Week, Peel's Rock Week, which we recorded, and in a week or two. We're not rushing at it. You know, because, you know, we've got other things in the pipeline, but we're going to have to listen to the tapes and decide what the best way is to play some of the stuff that was recorded. Well, I mean, we planned it. We had it all in there, me and Peel, it's all in there. Let's see what they say. Rose Rouse in Sounds, what does she say? Because it was called Putting the Fun Back into Being Pretentious, if you remember. She says, if this is John Peel's idea of putting fun back into being pretentious, I wish he'd stick to the strictly banal. John Peel's choices at the ICA this week turned out to be mainly overrated non-starters. It's him. Rose, it's not me. I had nothing to do with it. I knew nothing. I was just walking down the street. I saw the light. That's all. I went in for a drink. People said, hello, there's a bit of a noise in the back. I said, I'll go and shut them up. I mean, that's the way it is, eh? Hey, they suddenly have a go. Now, come on, Mrs. Woman. You see, now, she says, down from Cambridge, so this is for the first night, she said, with perfect vision, the only exception to my generalisation. Now... that's handy, because they got a good mention, so I can't afford to say what I like about them. They're basking in the glory. I didn't think they were that wonderful. They were good. I mean, they played very well, and it went OK, but a bit grammar schooly, do you know what I mean? They called it the next day. Very nice boys, and they called up and sort of, oh, hello, it's Perfect Vision. I said, oh, hello, John Waters. Hello, John. Now, look, how these tapes, and you think these are the kind of guys who might turn out to be very good accountants for rock groups, but they never quite make it in the business. But, on the other hand, Rose Rouse thought they were marvellous. Now, and then she hammers everything else, like hardcore. She says hardcore were deemed worthy of the business buzz. A&R men were leaping, and later they were running. Wait a minute, I saw a lot of people seem to be enjoying hardcore. I don't think they're perfect, and they've hardly played at all, really. They made a record, you know. And it says, hardcore are trying to be too hip to hop. Well, you know, these are the times when an open-door policy, that's Peel's policy, proves to be spectacularly misguided. Well, that's it, you see, that is Peel's policy. His policy isn't to present an interesting week at the ICA. It's more of an attitude of listening to little-known groups that perhaps haven't had the chance to even play and make records and so on. Encourage them, by and large. That's what we've done over the years. So when they trundle out at the ICA, some of them aren't perfect. I mean, if you want the other thing, you'd have Queen supported by flipping police and so on. We don't do that sort of thing, as you know. Anyway, there we go. The other things, let's have a quick look in Melody Maker. Dave Thomas in Melody Maker looks at Yip Yip Coyote. And he says it was fun, you know, he said it's fun there. And he says, yeah, no, a bit like The Fall in the Night. He goes, well, they are, yeah, that's it. And I think you'll find they sort of come on to something later on. Mick Mercer went along to the Perfect Vision night and Hardcore. Again, he says, you see, he has a go at Hardcore. Tonight, the band with the buzz, same with it, it's like a wasp band. They're all in there. But he said Hardcore are led by a woman I suspect is none other than my Auntie Dorothy, encased in an oven-ready dress and a Davy Crockett hat, slinkied over here and just flaunted over there. Don't you think I'm sexy, she insinuated with every square-hipped cross-court shot. Well, they have a go, you see. Yet he says Perfect Vision, smashing, best band of the lot. He says, well, there we go. Just shows you, but I think he's been a bit unfair on some of the others. But then it comes round to the night when he says, this isn't him, actually, it's Ted Miko or somebody like that, who goes along to see SBK and Big Flame. I didn't go to that night, Thursday, couldn't go every night in the flipping week, I've got other things to do. Went along, Peel went along, and it says, standing like a gnome at the bottom of the garden, John Peel watched Big Flame produce their brand of bebop punk with an avuncular benevolence. John had a cold. Oh, I didn't notice that, I think that was his excuse. But his malady didn't stifle enthusiasm as the trio dished out second helpings of their rampant entropy. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure what rampant entropy is, but there it was, on the stage there. Then, of course, he has a go at SBK, because he says, outraged punters carpeted the ICA with its own pamphlets in a fierce display of contempt from one and all. Because what had happened, you see, is they had the GLC people in, whoever the other 5 people, who said, you can't do all that drilling and all that, you know, sparks flying all over the place. Big row, long debate, 3 hours they were debating, and finally they said, you can only do numbers which don't feature all your drills and stuff. They did 2 numbers, made a big scene with the audience and went off. People were demanding the money back, kicking stuff over and so on. Well, there you go, you see. But it says they went off at the end to try and find Peely, who had apparently gone home. Smart man, that John Peel, still one step ahead of the pack. He caught his cold yesterday. Ratty-tatty. Then when you look at some of the other bits and bobs, you see, you've got photographs here in the Melody Maker of the foyer of the ICA, with SBK fans all waving and banging and shouting, with the police in there. One thing after another, and they say, here, the old metal grinders have been at it again. There we all were, ready for a bit of a knees-up with SBK at the ICA. On came our heroes, plays 1 number, in fact they played 2, but then, you know, and then walked off again. We all know it's called to play short sets, but this was pushing it a bit far. We thought, cue riot! It says, not big fans, the GLC stepped in after 1 SBK number claiming the liberal use of arc welders and metal bashing constituted a danger to the public. The GLC is soon to be abolished, and quite frankly, if this is their attitude, then we're not sorry. Come on, hang on a minute. You turn to NME, big picture of SBK there, same thing, big headline about inch high. SBK riot at ICA. Well, see, I happen to know, I called the ICA this afternoon, and they said, well, SBK have had trouble in London before.
Yes, they have.
They're known. They've had trouble at the venue and other places when they do these drilling and whirring and sawing and so on, which is part of their act, we know. Peel was just liaising with the ICA, and they said pick groups, and he gave them a list, including SBK. Now, if SBK knew they were going to get trouble, or suspected it, all they got to do is say, it's no point, we'd love to do it, but we're going to get trouble with the GLC unless we can sort this out beforehand. Nobody tried to sort it out before, as far as I know. Bloke turns up on the day from the fire department and says, as he always does, you can't use that equipment, because if it catches fire and everybody's burnt to a frazzle, the whole of the hip London scene becomes finger-licking good, something like that, then, you know, it's his fault, and he's got to... It's not for me to take sides on it, but if SPK knew this was coming, they should have said something about 2 months ago without taking it. Oh, I don't know, what are we going to do with it? Now, I pop up again, this is what I was going to refer to at the end, because in NME, never mind about SPK, R-A-V-E, do you know what that is? Not raving, actually. It's rampant accession of Victorian ethic. In other words, it means this violent return to, like, Victorian standards and repression and so on. And they're on about Donna Summer and so on. They're halfway down the column. Suddenly it says, what is happening to the world? R-A-V-E? has claimed another couple of victims. John Peel and John Walters have refused to play the new single by because they don't like the lyrics, and on a musical level it has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. That's a quote. As a matter of fact, it's a quote from me. Turn to Melody Maker. All those folks blathering on about what a shame it is that good old Peel is being robbed of his birthright and replaced a couple of nights a week by that Janice floozy. Well, for a start, Janice is spelt wrong, like Janice Ian in here. And so they say, might well be shocked to discover that the whiskered one, John, you fools, not Janice. Well, I'm sure you've got whiskers in the places that you're meant to have them, Janice. But, I mean, that's nothing to do with these people. That isn't quite the champion of each and every underdog that he makes himself out to be. He never did say he was the champion of each and every underdog, particularly talentless mediocrities, as it happens. But then they go on to say, why, only last week he refused to play single because, according to his mouthpiece, Sir J. Walters, that's having a go at me. See? Sir J. Why did they say that? Doesn't matter to me. OK. It has no redeeming features whatsoever. Then they sort of tone it down a little bit to the end, but they do say, Gary Crowley's playing this wretched thing on his show last week, so roll over, Peel. It looks like your time's up. Wait a minute. For once, I can put this right here. A record was sent, as many records are. Peel heard it. He said, actually, he says, you know, he doesn't always draw my attention to things. He sits in the corner. He said, I came in the office. He said, I put this to one side. You want to hear this? He said, awful. I heard it. Awful. It was a simple kind of, to me, I'm just saying, to me, it's just my opinion, semi-kind of shock idea of homosexual nature in a very ordinary setting. I mean, it wasn't even shock, except the idea of sort of homosexuality. If you're shocked by that, then I suppose you'll be shocked by the record. But who is these days? Let's face it. And when the bloke called up and said, have you heard record? No, you're going to play it? I said, but I'll take this one, because often you pretend to be out, you know what it's like. You know, you just don't want to have to bother with them arguing about it, because you just don't want to play it, and that's the end of that. But they want you to talk them through. And I didn't want him to call back, so I said, I told him, I said, I'm sorry, you know, but you know, it is clearly, I said, although it's the homosexual reference in it, and it's some nonsense about, you know, homosexuals at least don't produce children and bring them into this awful world. So, very simple, nonsensical ideas. Very, in my opinion, not very well presented, not very well sung. I said, it has no other redeeming features, so we're not banning it or anything. It's just that it's not a record we play. Let's get that clear. Calls, obviously, you see what's happened. Just from that phone call. He's called Enemy, he's called Melody Maker. He's told them what I've said. You see, they've not checked. Now, we don't have any homosexual ban on the programme. I mean, blimey, our programme would be half empty if all of Radio 1 was anti-homosexual anyway. And in fact, the Bronskys, who are very gay Libby and so on, approached us and said, actually, we do our pop material for, I think, Bruno's programme. Can we do a session for you where we can be a little bit more explicit? And I said, look, as long as you're not going to be biologically explicit, you know, I mean, in a manner of speaking, don't get up anybody's nose. No, you know what I mean? Don't actually offend anybody. There are certain common sense rules in broadcasting about what we'll call law and morality and everything else. And you know, and so I said, you can do, the session's going out Monday. There's actually nothing in it. Two of them are instrumental, so it's not that shocking. But it goes out on Peel's show. So, but I said to them, fine, as long as you abide by those rules, not against the principle, sure. Now, look, NME and Melody Maker, I've nearly been in this business professionally for 20 years, and I've been conned myself. Oh, I've been times, you know, people have put one over on me, fine, not so much these days as they used to. I've had this before, people calling up and say, on our record, there's a rude word. And you say, oh, yeah, so this, are you going to ban it? And they know you're just waiting to say, yes, and they'll dial us on. You know what I mean? And you think, no, I'm not going to ban it, not saying that at all. Let's hear it and we'll judge it when we hear it. But this guy, he's got onto the papers. He wants the publicity, that's all. He's hoping somebody's going to actually, you know, at home, this group may be sitting there now thinking, oh, they've taken the bait. Either he's going to play it to show what the record's like, or he's going to name the group and people will go out and buy it because they think it's going to be shocking. I'm not going to mention the name of the group or the title. It's nothing to do with me. No, I say. If you go out and buy it and you expect to get prurient excitement out of it, you're going to be very disappointed. And if you're going to expect musical innovation, in my opinion, you'll be very disappointed. In the meantime, let's go back to where there's standards. In the New Musical Express, one of the very rare interviews, I don't know why they're particularly rare, I had him on Walters Weekly once, very nice bloke, Derek Bailey. Guitarist who's played behind a lot of very well-known people, but his big thing is free improvisation. And it's his big thing, blink, plonk, blink, 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 it just plinks away, but he knows what he's talking about. And he says, Mozart, the Beatles, that's a pimple on the bum of music, really. He said, it's really, the human spirit ought to speak without all timing and waltzing and, you know, and tunes and things. It ought to be plink, plonk, plink, plonk, plonk. And it's quite a good interview, so it's worth buying the Enemy to read about Derek Bailey, even though you've got to put up with and their non-shocking record as well. But he does say at one stage, he says, my idea of music, it's like, he says, do you know that schnozzle Jimmy Durante record, I'm the guy that found the lost chord. That's what I think about it. It says, that's the best definition I've ever heard of music. Well, for all the fuss, SPK getting publicity, getting no publicity from me from the pop press this week. I think I'll go with Derek Bailey. I'm still pursuing that holy grail, even though this isn't what Derek Bailey sounds like, of the lost chord.
On the lost chord.
And the lost chord, great stuff. Snozzles Durant, and of course, great stuff. Mr. Walters. Mike Hawkes, you were out and about, weren't you, last night?
Indeed I was. Where was I?
Slough.
No. I was indeed at Slough, yes. A wonderful
Slough.
place.
And what were you doing there?
I went down to see a band I have seen before called Amazulu, who were jolly good.
Did you enjoy yourself?
I did enjoy myself very much.
And when you were there, you picked up this, didn't you?
I did indeed, yes.
Which